Today in Matt's class, we are going to talk about tips, tricks, and techniques for drawing the male body. Drawing the male body is relatively easy to do, so let's talk about the process. And I'm not going to go as in-depth as I did with drawing the male head and the female head, but there are some things that are the same, like starting by drawing lightly, building with basic shapes, and then getting more complex with the details as you move along. So in general, with drawing people, here's the problem that I think a lot of artists, when they're starting out, when you're still in school and kind of finding your way, this is the problem that a lot of people have. What they'll do is they'll kind of start drawing their person. So they'll have, let's say, this guy here. He's happy, a buzz cut. Here he is hanging out, and you got to make sure 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's say he's wearing one of those, it's like a tank top. It's white. They call them wife beaters for some reason.
Yeah.
But it's like a white tank top. And here is your person, and you might look at it and you might be like, wow, I'm so good, like that looks great. But then the next day you come back and you look at it and you're like, oh, it looks like he's totally lopsided and his arms are like jello, and is he wearing the tank top or is the tank top wearing him? I don't even know. And it just doesn't look good. And the reason why is we always want to start in with the details. We just can't wait to get in there and draw the eyes and the hair and all of this stuff. But if you can take the time to plan out your figure first and to lightly make a blueprint, then draw your details on top of that, it is going to change your world. So there's 4 steps that you want to take when drawing your figures, and I'm going to take you through them right now. So step number 1, I'm going to use an orange marker for this step because I want you guys to draw lightly. So the first step is what I call, number 1, the stick. This is essentially the stick figure. It's the gesture, it's the skeletal structure. Every art book will call it something different, so I just call it the stick because it's like a stick figure. However, this stick figure is not just the circle and like this, although there are some similarities to it. We're going to get a little bit more skeletal, a little bit more anatomical with our stick figure. So I'm going to start with the head. I feel like the head is the most important and it's the most difficult. If you get the head kind of where you want it, and let's say something is wrong with the rest of the body, it's always easier to change that if you draw the body first and then try adding the head on top of that. The head is always going to be like over like this, or it's too long or too short. It's never going to be in the right place. So if you can kind of get the head first to where you're happy with it, the rest is a lot easier to change. So I always start with that. So kind of drawing a gentleman, drawing a male from the front, I start with the 2 basic shapes, which is the head and the jaw. Of course, we're going to slice a little bit off the sides here, like so. And there is our basic head shape right there. Now, a lot of times students always ask, how many heads tall? Because it always shows that in a lot of books. I actually don't like to give you guys how many heads tall the human body is, because any art book that you look at, it's going to say something different. And in real life, we're kind of all a little bit different anyway. In general, in actuality, reality, people are usually about 6 heads tall. But when you draw people 6 heads tall, they look a little bit short, and they also look like their head is a little bit larger than it should be. They kind of look like lollipops a little bit, so they look a little bit strange. So we like to do, again, this is idealizing the figure, we like to draw longer, lankier people. So for example, in comic books, usually you see people drawn anywhere from 7.5 to 9.5 heads tall is usually about how tall comic book characters will be. When you're doing fashion illustration, it's even more. You're usually drawing characters anywhere from 12 to 14 heads tall. That's more than twice as tall as characters really are. So that would be one of 2 things. Imagine a person with a regular size head that's like 14 feet tall walking around. How weird would that be? Or imagine a person that's normal height but 14 heads tall. That would mean they have like a little raisin head but they're still like 6 feet tall, that's obviously really weird too. So again, it's just a stylistic thing, and sometimes it just looks cool with the style that you're doing. So I don't like to give any kind of proportion, because when you're drawing, you don't want to just measure everything out. You want to just look at your drawing and you want to be able to decipher, does it look good or no? If it doesn't look good, why doesn't it look good? And you need to be able to look at it and decipher, you know, it looks too short. Okay, if it does, erase, make it longer. Now it looks too long. Okay, that's great. At least you can kind of tell it now it looks too long, but you need to have the diligence to erase again and do it right. The problem with, if I give you a dimension and say 7.5, you want to draw your body 7.5 heads tall. Instead of like really looking at your drawing and seeing what looks wrong or what looks right, you're just going to look at it and say, well, I don't know if it looks right or not, but let me measure. Nope, it's 7.5 heads tall, so I guess it's right. You can't do that. For one, it takes all the fun out of drawing, but also just because it's 7.5 heads tall doesn't mean it's correct, and it doesn't mean that it can't be better. So you really want to train yourself to just looking at what you're drawing and really being able to see what needs to be nudged, what needs to be improved here and there. So here we go. The neck goes into the spine, like so. So the first thing we want to do, we want to add in the shoulders. The shoulders are usually 2 heads wide. So if I kind of look at my width right here and I add another one over here, that's going to be about here, another head width over here. And then I'm going to draw a line going straight across. Now, it's kind of funny. This is the shoulders going across. Think of it almost as the clavicle going straight across like this. This is not like this. This isn't your person going, hey, give me some love, throw me a hug. This is meant to be the shoulders. Now, a lot of times what you'll see me doing, you'll see me putting these little circles down. These are what's called points of articulation. It's actually a term that comes from action figure design. And so anywhere where your limbs can move around, or you have like elbows or wrists, a lot of times you'll see artists lightly, remember we're still drawing lightly, you'll see them add these little ball joints, I guess is what they are, wherever there's points of articulation. Most of the figure you're just drawing with lines, kind of drawing the limbs, but there is one more thing that you kind of need to put an indication of, and that is the rib cage. So what I like to do, I don't draw all the ribs or anything, but I kind of just draw this barrel-shaped chest right here, and then I'll just kind of have it go up like that. And that's enough just to kind of give me a general indication of the rib cage. Next up is the pelvic bone. Now the pelvic bone, all you have to do is draw a line straight across. That's going to work you don't have to do the crazy figure 8 or the crazy shape of the pelvic bone. That's going to work just like that. But we talk about idealizing the figure. One thing that you can do with men, first of all, for the shoulders, if you want to idealize your men and make them look just a little bit more beefy, a little bit more heroic, you can make the shoulders a little bit more broad. You can kind of widen the shoulders. In fact, let's do that, because I didn't really do that as much. Let's just broaden them just a little bit. The second thing that you can do, the hips are usually just as wide as the shoulders are, but with men, again, you can kind of idealize that. If you make the hips too wide, your men can look just a little hippie a little bit. So you want to bring those hips in just a little bit just to idealize the figure. Just a little bit, and that kind of gives the torso more of kind of like a V shape. It's just a little bit more heroic. Next up, you've got the femurs, and the femurs, you'll notice, this is one of the biggest things that's going to save your figure drawing. Notice how the femurs, the ball of the femurs, attach in the sides of the pelvic bone. This is one of the biggest things that's going to help you, because most artists, a lot of times when they're drawing their under stick figure, their gesture, they do this, and they just have the legs coming out of the middle. That's really weird, because men need to have room, for the family jewels. And if you put your legs like this, your people are going to be walking like this everywhere, and that's just really bizarre. You need to have, your legs are almost like a swing set, where your femurs are almost like paddles dangling underneath the pelvic bone. So then we've got our knees right here. And then lower legs, I usually draw kind of triangles for the feet like so. Then we've got the arms, and the arms, even if this person is standing straight, usually your arms are not pinned straight like this. Usually there's a slight bend to them, even if you're standing at attention, there's just this slight bend that you have. Upper arms here. Usually the hands start at about where the hip bone is. And there we go, that is our basic stick figure ready to move on to the next step. Now we still want to draw lightly, so what I am going to do, I'm actually going to use green. The only reason I'm using green is because I still want you to draw lightly, and this green color is just a little bit, it's not as dark as like, you know, black or like the dark blue. So the next step, step 2, is what I call meat. Some people call this drawing in the muscles. Some people call this the contour line. Some people call this constructing the three-dimensional figure. You can call it whatever you want. Just to have a quick name, I call it meat because it's like you're slapping meat on top of the bones. Sorry if that sounds a little goofy, but that's what it is. You're just throwing meat on there. So we're gonna go ahead and add the muscles on top of this skeletal structure. So we've got the neck. We're drawing lightly still, by the way. We've got the neck that's coming down like so. Here's the shoulders. The deltoids wrap around. Pectoral. There's the pit of the neck here. Here's the biceps, triceps. This dude is ripped.
One of those diagrams where they show you where your little ports are to unblock your chi.
Yeah.
Got like the life energy flowing.
Okay.
The guy on the left's got a lot of block of chi.
This one here, yeah, I would say so. All right, so the shoulders I actually have a little, it's a little funky, but for demonstration purposes, I think we're good to go. All right, so now we have a basic blueprint of our body, and now it's the moment you've been waiting for. You can't wait to throw in the details. Well, now you get to. Once you kind of get used to this, now is the moment where you can start to draw more confidently. We've got the blueprint of our body, so adding in the details three-dimensionally is gonna be a lot easier. So for starters, just to show you, this guy here, he's wearing one of those wife beaters, you know, it's the white tank top, and it's not working very well. Watch what happens when we add a wife beater to this gentleman right here. It's really gonna work out well, again, because we already have the three-dimensional structure planned out. So I'm gonna have, this is kind of the area kind of going around the neck. Here is kind of how it goes here. It's kind of wrapping around. And here it's kind of tucked in.
Word to the wise, do not tuck in your beater.
Oh yeah, I guess that does look a little weird, doesn't it? So I'm just gonna erase some of these construction lines so you can kind of see it a little bit better. It's a little jacked over here. I made my character a little bit thick, but can you see where this tank top is definitely wrapping around the torso now? It looks so much better than this one right here. But see, I wouldn't have been able to draw this just out of my head Without having this blueprint, I wouldn't have been able to just like kind of, oh, look at that. It already looks like it's wrapped around the figure. That would be really hard to do, but because I have this three-dimensional blueprint of the stick and the meat lightly, I can now draw with confidence and really get some cool details. So we can add some other fun stuff, like let's say this dude was in the Navy and he's got this cool anchor tattoo.
Is this the third step?
Yeah, sorry, thank you, James. This is step 3, which is the details. Let's say he's got this cool fossil watch, and it's like one of those watches, it's got like the leather strap. It's like something Conan the Barbarian would have, something like so. Maybe when Gibraltar Trade Center was a thing, you got this cool belt buckle that actually has a scorpion that was trapped in amber. And this guy really feels tough because he's got this scorpion placed conveniently above the manhood.
Oh, what kind of message are you sending there?
Bad boy. You can laugh and make fun.
But that belt buckle means
That
business.
belt buckle. Okay, so there you go. And then you can draw all the fun, you know, if this guy is wearing jeans, you can draw all the fun with the little, I don't know why there's a condom pocket.
Traditionally for your pocket watch.
There's one more step, and I'm gonna go a little bit shorter on this one, but when I go over the next step, how to draw the female figure, I'm gonna spend a lot more time on step number 4, which is shadows. And sometimes shadows, you don't have to go too crazy. Sometimes a little bit can go a long way. For example, right here underneath the belt, the fact that I have this little shadow here and then not as much here, it's almost like that, I don't know what it's called, but that flap, you know, on your jeans, it's almost like it's coming out. The fact that this little drop shadow here and then it's up a little bit closer and then it comes down a little bit more. Little things like that, you can do so much with your shadows to really make things stand out. There's just so much that you can do. In some cases, there might just be, you might have like these really ripped pectorals kind of rolling into shadows like this. And sometimes it's easier where you're just drawing sometimes it's even easier where you are just drawing specific drop shadows or specific cast shadows, which I'm going to show you how to do in the next video for how to draw the female body. Speaking of, that is the next video, so I hope you guys join us for that.